Hey traders, Michael or Mini Frost here. You're here for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. Today is Thursday, September 18th, 2025. You're looking at a daily chart of the SPY or spiders, which is the proxy for the S&P 500. What do we have on the docket today? Well, first things first, she's up 0.47%. And she's still continuing to grind up higher, making new all-time highs. But what's important to note is that we are a stone's throw away from the 666 number. I'm going to put it on the board. I'm not going to say the number because I don't really like that stuff, if I'm being totally honest. It scares me. It's a scary number. But what you need to know is that we're now a stone's throw away. Today we made a high of 664.89. One other thing that we can mention and put in our back pockets is that we have a little doji slash pseudo doji candle formation today. It does have some decent volume, not as much as I would have liked it to be, but regardless, this is still a doji slash pseudo doji candle with decent volume. And these are sign and or signals of a trend change. And if you remember from yesterday's video, when we talked about Camp IWM, we had a pretty decent sized tail candle with a lot of volume. We'll get to that later when we go over Camp IWM, but this is just information that we gotta put on the board. So we have been coming up short of some unfinished business. For example, we missed yesterday's gap by a touch. That is unfinished business. And also we got some down below. Now, I see a full stack forming, so I want you to get your sticky notes out. We're gonna go over the full stack that I see. So item number one, we have this gap right here at 650.33. Alright, that's number one. Number two is that it coincides with the 20 period moving average being home base. And yes, we are extended from home base. Markets don't like to be too extended, as it is called home base for a reason. Number three is that we have this breakdown candle high right here. It's not the exact high, but it's around the vicinity of the high. Number four is that we're also in the vicinity of a recent breakout area right here. This was a previous all-time high, couldn't get much higher than that. We had a little pullback retesting home base. Funny how that works. And then we finally got back over it, making it a recent breakout area. So those are four things that we see on the chart to help us build a full stack. But one other thing that we have to keep note of is the medium-term pivot number. That number is in green, and it's at 647.24. So we can call this an area of support. We cannot disregard the medium-term pivots. The market showed us that that medium-term pivot is important many times. Look right here. We came up a little bit short of the pivot. So this was a place where she couldn't just waltz right through. This was overhead resistance. And then we pulled back, we made another attempt at it. As you can see right here, nailed it on the dot. Didn't really have too much of a pullback, but then we finally got back over it. She didn't really make that much headway, and then we went back towards the 20 period moving average. Okay, and then we went back up, and then started using it as support on the way back down. Right here at this candle, the 8th of September, we made a low of 647.23. And then the day after, we made a low of 647.22, using it as support on the way back down. So yes, this pivot is still important. You gotta put this zone on a sticky note. It's also a spike of the 20 period moving average. But what happens if this zone fails? Because that is a possibility. Nothing in the market is 100% certain. We obviously need to look at both sides of the tape with an unbiased viewpoint. Well, if that support zone fails, the next destination that she's most likely going to want to head to is going to be the 50 period moving average. We can throw another number out at 640.27. This happens to be an unfilled gap. Not to mention you got a big breakup candle low right here. It's not really at the lows, again at the vicinity, a little bit higher than I would have liked it to be, but this is still an important area. So as traders treating it like a business, we also need to look at what would happen if it doesn't work out, because certainly that is a possibility. Nothing is 100% certain in the market, and that goes for life as well. I'm excited to go over inside the numbers because we had another one of those bonanza days. We had a ton of traders making money today with absolutely no heat. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So we can start with the morning pivot at 663. That's going to be important later. But the main number that you want to know is right here. The first potential zone of support is right at 660.35 to 659.45. How you doing? Right at the vertical line is today's activity. The first support number is in blue right here, 660.35, and she made a low of 660.27. Spiked it by 8 cents. Essentially a zero heat trade. Look how much she gave you. She gave you almost $4.50. But that's not all. You want the cherry on the top? Well, I'm gonna give you the cherry on the top. Let's scroll up to 9 o'clock. What's the scoop for today? And we got an overhead resistance number. If we continue higher, the next destination will be at 664.60. How you doing? 664.60 is on the board, spiked it by a touch, and this was indeed overhead resistance. And keep in mind, this is at new all-time highs. Who else is giving you these numbers on the freaking dot at new all-time highs? Come on now. We can easily give that one the numbers work. Remember that pivot number I mentioned earlier at 663? We'll take a look at this. She was eating time off the clock at that number. Just from this area alone, you can see the importance of the pivot. We got above it slightly and then came back down, started to close candles below the pivot. But then take note, at the end of the day, the last 10 minutes of the day, we went right back up towards the pivot, made a high of 663.04. Not going to split hairs over pennies. The market obviously knew about this number, and then she was immediately rejected. She couldn't reestablish price above the pivot. Take it at face value. So this was another happy bonanza day for us. Traders were in and out in pretty much less than 15 minutes. We grabbed the morning trade, a lot of traders made a nice chunk of change, and then we were already ready for lunchtime. This is exactly what it is. This is a morning business, and this was the morning trade. You can pause the video, read the notes, and go back to the chart to double check the work. There's a lot of intraday notes in here so that you're never missing a beat. If you're a trader who's looking to trade the SPY and you need a morning game plan, you need the numbers, you need the pivots, then Inside the Numbers is the place to be. Not to mention, if you purchase the live room, you get Inside the Numbers for free. So you get the SPY game plan early in the morning before the opening bell. You get a list of 13 different markets, now including Tesla. You also got the Qs in there, IWM, gold, crude, natural gas, silver, Bitcoin, a whole bunch of different opportunities. Not to mention, we have a whole list of stocks on the move. As you could see, we had 3 today. Unfortunately, none of them hit their entry targets, but that's okay. We prefer quality rather than quantity. And overall, it was a very, very awesome day for all of us. Before we dive into Camp IWM, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as it does indeed help me and the channel out a lot. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, not to mention, if you click the link in the description below, you can get a free swing trade from the Lazy Swing Trader system itself. We're rocking an 87% win rate this year, so that's definitely something to take advantage of before it's gone. Okay, so what do we got in Camp IWM? Well, she's up 2.49%, a pretty decent day, making new all-time highs and finishing pretty much at the new highs. So here's what we said yesterday. Yesterday we had a tail candle with a lot of volume. So that is indeed a sign and or signal of a trend change. Now, with that said, because it's a sign or signal of a trend change, that doesn't mean we immediately need to stop and reverse and go back down. Okay, that's not how it works. That's another case of nothing is 100% certain in the market. It's a puzzle piece that we put on the board. Okay, it doesn't mean we take immediate action just because we see a sign or signal of a trend change. So with that said, here's my take on the situation. If you remember the overhead resistance zone mentioned for the last few weeks in Camp IWM, the back end number comes in at 244.98. Okay, that was unfinished business that Camp IWM wanted to finish today. Okay, that also happens to coincide with a big fat semi round number at 245. And that number is important because we pretty much stopped right on that number. We made a high of 245.15, so we spiked it by a tad. But why didn't we push up higher? We had every opportunity to keep on going. This was also a first time, best time situation since we came up short yesterday. All right, so what I'm gathering from this is that she wanted to complete the unfinished business being that number. I told you that that zone and those two numbers were important. So she took care of that number. That's now finished business. And yes, that is a technical term. And we also have to keep in our back pockets that we did have a sign or signal of a trend change. It doesn't need to change on the dime with the snap of the fingers. Okay, we can get a retracement like we saw today, completed some unfinished business, and it's not out of the question that we can still look for a turn in my number one favorite market leading indicator. All right, we're still extended from home base. We got some unfinished business down below. Again, we have to look at both sides of the tape. And if we do decide to push up higher, and this is really just a fake sign or signal of a trend change, then we'll certainly have those numbers ready for Inside the Numbers and live room members. And the IWM numbers have been on freaking point. All right, what's going on over at the transportation department? Well, she's up 0.90%. She ran another test of the 20-period moving average, but what's important to note, and this is a key detail, is that we are not closing above the pivot number at 15,650, this breakup candle low. We're still fighting that number, and she's trying to get over it. She keeps heading back towards the 50 and the 20-period moving average, but she cannot sustain price at that area. For a reason. She keeps deciding to close candles below. Now the close today was 15,642, so that is pretty neutral, so to speak, at the pivot number, but she did close slightly below, so we'll just take it at face value. The longer we stay below, she's going to want to run another test of the 200-period moving average or even this support zone that we have. We got the upwards trend line that we haven't touched in a while, with two support numbers creating a zone of support, and then not to mention we got the 100-period moving average creeping in that zone. So as of right now, we're still trading right in the middle of the channel. We're not at the precipice yet. The precipice is where the two trend lines converge. And when we get to that point, that means time is up and she's going to have to make her decision right there. But with that said, that doesn't mean she can't make her decision beforehand. And I'll tell you this, the longer we stay below the pivot, the more likely she's going to want to test this area. And if we do decide to close candles below the support zone and getting below the upwards trend line, then that is a flare up in the air and we're going to head for another leg lower. And that would mean we're below all the moving averages in my second favorite market leading indicator. What's going on with the financials? Well, she's up 0.09%, she's up 5 cents, and today we did make a new all-time high, but we did not, and I repeat, did not close at that high. Same situation as yesterday. We did not finish at the high, and it's important where you close them. That's one of the most important things that we need to look at as traders. So we are in a bullish situation. We are above all the moving averages. That is an obvious, but we are the umpires, so we need to look at both sides of it. We have some unfinished business at this gap right here, and that happens to coincide with the 20-period moving average. And then we also have some more unfinished business right here. This is a number we've been talking about for a while now at 52.70. So we can continue to spike them up and make new all-time highs, but if we can't finish above and close at those highs, then she's going to want to make a run for the 20-period moving average being home base. That is going to be some normal garden variety behavior, taking care of the unfinished business down below. Not to mention between these two numbers, we have a big time breakup candle low that happens to be the midpoint of the two numbers. That also can be an important number. What's going on with the Q people? Well, she's up 0.90%, and what a shocker, she keeps on making new all-time highs. Just like the SPY, we are approaching the 666 number. That can be a full cycle/circle moment, but not to mention in the Qs, we are approaching an important number, and it's a big fat round one as well. You guessed it, that number comes in at 600, even. We came up short of it today, but this is an important number. The big fat round numbers are important. 600 is going to be a milestone number for the Qs. By the way, leave a comment below if you took any of these trades, if you took the morning SPY trade that we had in less than 15 minutes, or just any trade that you took around the board. I'd love to know. I love to see how you guys are doing with the numbers. It makes me happy that I'm helping you guys, and that you guys are benefiting from all of this. It's like a highlight of my day. I love reading the comments that you guys leave. So with that said, we are above all the moving averages, so the trend is obviously your friend. Coming up to an important 600 that can be some overhead resistance. We're a stone's throw away from it right now. And not to mention, we are extended from home base, and we got some unfinished business down below that we need to take care of, such as yesterday's gap at 590, another big fat semi round number. Whoa, how you doing? In SMH, shaking my head, the semiconductors, smash mouth. She's up a whopping 3.84%, pretty much a gap and go situation today. and this thing is just ridiculously strong. Here's a number on the board. That number is at 302.98. We can call it 303 even. This is essentially the previous breakout area. And as you can see, we kept on testing it throughout last week and this week. As you can see, pretty much nailing it right on the dot. Yesterday, we spiked it by a touch, but then closed above it. So that is some bullish behavior. And then look at what happened today. We had this huge gap up, a gap up of around $8. And she almost made it to another important number at 320. We're basically a stone's throw away from that number. But this is a perfect example of how the markets love to come back and retest the most recent breakout area. And we could almost use this as a pivot number. Staying above, she's bullish, which we obviously saw. We never had a candle close below this number, so that is the bull case scenario. But if we did start closing candles below that number, the first destination would have been the 20 or even the 50 period moving average. Take a look at right here. We have some unfinished business at 297.81. That's this gap right here. The following day we did come up short, so that is some unfinished business. And that happens to fall in line right with the 20 period moving average being home base. We are extended from home base. Now we are really extended from home base since we had this gap and go situation today. Have I told you guys how much I appreciate each and every one of you? Without you guys, these videos or MSF would not be possible. That is true and accurate information. Put it on a sticky note. We're going to pull the ripcord for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. I'm 𝐿𝑰𝐞𝐿. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, as it helps me and the channel out a lot. With that said, we're going to pull the ripcord for today. Just know that I appreciate all of you guys so very much. So with that said, enjoy the rest of the day, stay safe, and take care now, folks.